loved to drink. I loved to party. I loved to go out to bars. I loved to be social. Sometimes I'd make a fool out of myself, but all in good fun, right? Drinking consumed me. I would do anything to get that next drink, and I could never just have one. Sometimes I would be repulsed by the thought of drinking, but I would do it anyways. It got to the point where I was physically dependent on alcohol. I needed it to wake up in the morning. Oh, would I like a glass of wine? Sure, here, I'll just pour myself my own glass. Thanks, this is good. Alright. I started collecting bottle caps and wine corks about 2 years ago. They're all separated by brand in little baggies. I don't drink that much. Being an alcoholic and being bipolar is sometimes a struggle. I don't struggle as much now that I'm not drinking, but when I'm manic, I feel like I'm on top of the world. I'm fucking God. I can do anything and everything without having any consequences. The energy that flows through me is just crazy. I feel anxious. I'm overstimulated. I can't process a thought. I would say that my thoughts come and go so quickly I can't even look them as they pass by. And I just do the weirdest shit.
Hello, my name is Haley. I am gonna make some salsa.
And with mania comes a high level of confidence and hypersexuality. Then there's the other part of being bipolar, and that's the depression. It's sometimes crippling, and I don't know what to do with myself. I've even had moments of feeling suicidal and checking myself into a crisis center just to talk to somebody when I'm feeling that way. It just sucks because I'll go from feeling fantastic to wanting to kill myself, and sometimes it happens in the same day. But I make it through, one day at a time. I'd say that I finally got my shit together when I decided to go to treatment. I was 26 at the time, and I was scared as hell. I just took a look at my daily life and decided that I didn't want to live like this anymore. And I knew that I couldn't do it alone. I needed help to quit. And at first I thought maybe I'll just go for 30 days off. But then I realized when I got there that I'm an alcoholic. It was recommended to me to go to an all-women's treatment facility due to my history of abuse by men. And so I went to Awakenings by the Sea, and it was the best decision that I've ever made in my life. After 30 days, I got my first coin, and then they sent me on my way, and I was out to face the real world. I was on the pink cloud for a little while. The pink cloud is where you realize you get to live your life and do everything over again for the first time. It was beautiful. The pink cloud sort of expanded after 60 and 90 days of being sober. I had like this fog that had surrounded me for so long that I just felt being lifted, and I was more willing to explore and try new things on my own and try things that scared me. I got my first place living alone within my first year of sobriety, and that was a huge accomplishment to have a safe place for me and Bailey. I started collecting coins. I got to model for a local wedding dress company. I was making new friends and being social. I did a lot to get out of my shell when I first became sober. And before I knew it, I had a year, and it was the most amazing feeling. I was about 11 months sober when I accepted the diagnosis of being bipolar. I knew that something was up, I just didn't know what, and it was really hard for me to accept in the beginning. I felt like I was a red flag now. But in the end, I realized this is just new information about me to learn about myself. In my second year, I continued growing, I continued learning, I continued trying new things that scared me. I got a second shot at life and I didn't want to fuck it up again.
What was your rock bottom and what made you want to get help?
I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Will you be able to hear her asking the questions?
So you're going to want to answer the yes, but you would probably want to answer the
That's
questions
right.
with the form in
Yeah,
it. Yes.
okay.
So my rock bottom was,
Okay.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And what made me want to get help is
Okay.
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 So I'll just repeat the question.
Okay.
What was your rock bottom and what made you want to get help?
So my rock bottom was very lonely and isolating, and I think that honestly my rock bottom was when after I got divorced, I started drinking really heavily. I was already drinking pretty heavily in that marriage, and I just started, yeah, it kind of got out of control. But what made me want to get help was I had a moment where I just kind of looked at my life, and the only thing that was scarier than not getting, than, let me think, I don't remember how I word this. The only thing scarier than quitting drinking was not quitting drinking. And so, yeah, and it was pretty intense feeling.
Was there a specific moment that you can recall where you go, yeah, this is it?
Yeah, I do remember that moment. I was standing outside, smoking a cigarette, swaying, just drunk as shit. And, yeah, and I was just like, damn, I do this like every fucking night. And if I continue doing this, like, what's it gonna be like by the time I'm 30? Because at the time I was only 26. Yeah. And so, yeah, I just kind of, I got a lot of fear thinking about what my life would look like in like 5 to 10 years. So, yeah.
What was the scariest part about getting help?
The scariest part about getting help was not knowing what was to come. Because initially I thought, well, I want to stop drinking, but I think I just need to do like a 30-day, like just take a month off type thing. And for me, it was really scary to think about going just a day without alcohol, because I would just get really shaky, and like there was some mornings where I would like wake up and go to the bathroom in the morning like you always do, and like my legs would be like literally bouncing because I just like had like started to like detox in my sleep. And so a lot of the times I would start my morning off with with a couple shots of whiskey and then go to work. And then, yeah, so.
How did the process go of figuring out you were an alcoholic?
The process of figuring out I was an alcoholic was when I went to my first meeting, I think. Because I went into this community of alcoholics with zero expectations, not really knowing what to expect, what to think. And it was in my first meeting that I was like, fuck, I'm an alcoholic. Just because I related so much to what everyone else was saying, and it felt like they were telling like my story. And I was just like, it brought me a lot of relief because I, at the same time I was like, well, shit, now I definitely can't just take 30 days off. Like I have to, be in this. And, but at the same time, I felt relief. Just knowing that I had like a community of people that I could go to who were feeling the same way as I was. So yeah, it was in treatment, I think, was like the real discovery that I was an alcoholic, because it kind of just hit me of like, damn, like I'm straight up in rehab right now. Like people don't go to rehab who just like aren't struggling. So yeah.
At what point when you thought, oh, I'll take 30 days off, no big deal, did you realize I need more help than that?
I realized I needed more help than just taking a month off when I tried to do it myself. When I tried to quit drinking and just taking like I would be like, okay, like I'm not going to drink tomorrow, and then tomorrow would come and I'd be like, well, just like, a glass, and then a glass turns into like 2 bottles. And it was, I tried. I think the longest streak that I got of sobriety before going to treatment was like around a month. And that was like in 2018 or 19, when I first like wrote about being an alcoholic in my journals, I found. And then at the time, my ex-husband and I were trying to have a baby, and so I wanted to quit drinking. But yeah, so kind of roundabout way of answering that question.
That's good. That's really good. What was rehab like?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what rehab was like. For the most part, rehab was really a great experience for me. I definitely had, I'm just going to read a little bit of just some pinpoints from the journal that I kept while I was in rehab. This is like my first night, day 1, 5/7/21. So that's my sobriety date. I'm sad and lonely. I want to fucking drink. Kind of hungry now. Still hopeful, but I'm bored in a room alone and have been sobering up for the last couple hours. So any ounce of confidence has pretty much gone out the window at this point. Everything is super overwhelming right now. I really miss everyone. I think I'm a little overwhelmed. And then, I just, I had like a lot of structure in rehab, which I kind of had in my like daily life, but I didn't have a structured routine without drinking. Like drinking was always in my routine, so I felt like rehab really gave me the tools to build a routine and a structured life without having to use alcohol to fill in like those empty spaces. So I think it was a really great experience, and I think that like if it wasn't such a like I don't know what the right word is, but if it wasn't so much for like people who needed help, like I think that like taking like some sort of like retreat is like recommended, because there was times where even after I got out of treatment, especially in the beginning, where I was like, man, I wish I could just like take a weekend and go back to rehab. Like that would be like my vacation, because it was just a really loving environment. I went to a treatment facility that was a woman's only. Um, the reason why I did that was because I had initially inquired about a different facility, but because of my history with past abuse by men, and they asked me a series of other questions, and was very promiscuous. So they suggested that I go to a women's only treatment facility. And so that's what I did, and I have no regrets. What question are we on?
We're on number 4.
Okay, perfect.
If you had the power to change society to cater to your brain, what would you change?
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked me, well, I shouldn't say that. One person has asked me, but I'm sure others are curious of if I could like change society, because there's like alcohol commercials, there's alcohol billboards, there's trucks that drive on the freeway, like big advertisements for alcohol. Like if I could change that, what would I change? And some days it is like really triggering, but for the most part, I feel like just because I made a change in my life doesn't mean that others around me have to make a change. And, you know, because it's just part of anything that you quit doing, it's still kind of going to be everywhere, especially with alcohol. So I think, you know, I wouldn't really change it. I mean, if I could change it, I would just say that like alcohol never existed and nobody had to have this issue. But I did very much enjoy alcohol when I was using it, so I get it.
That's a follow-up, just a small one.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, but answer to her is, how do you feel in social situations when friends are drinking around you or people
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, in social situations, it depends. I take it day by day. Some days I feel very confident in my sobriety, and I feel like I could even go to a bar with friends, which I've done before, and been totally fine. And other days I have straight up been like, no, I can't today. I can't go. Like, even though, like, I'm sorry, I know we had these plans, but it's just not going to work out today. And just, I feel like sticking with that and just checking in with myself every day is like really important to like stay sober.
Did you have to make the rounds and, I guess, go on the apology tour? Once you started getting sober and you went, hey, I'm sorry, you know.
Yes. So when it came to being sober, I did have to make some amends. It's actually part of the program that I do, is making amends to people who I have harmed because of my drinking. And everyone has been very accepting of that. So,
Does it annoy you when others ask you why you are sober, or do you enjoy talking about it?
I do not get annoyed when people ask me why I'm sober. I do enjoy talking about it for the most part, just because I like being honest, and I feel like maybe that person is trying to get to know me better. So, yeah, I don't get offended if somebody asks me.
How do you get your loved ones on the sober train?
Yes. Sorry, I kind of like feel like I'm getting emotional. I had somebody ask me how to get my loved ones on to the sober train, and that just kind of made me sad in a way, because I know that they're worried about someone, and that you know, I wonder if they worried about me in that way as well. And the best thing that I can do is just remain a positive influence and show them what it's like to be sober and live a sober life. But there's nothing that I can do to help them to become sober, because that's a decision that you have to make for yourself, and you have to make that decision when you're ready. Nobody can tell you when you're ready to do that. So, yeah.
Now that you're sober, do you still struggle with bipolar issues?
Now that I'm sober, I do still struggle with bipolar. It's definitely not as bad. It's not as bad, but there are times where I just feel very alone in my struggle. There are times where I feel like I don't know who to call. And so I'm just kind of left to my own self. And there's been times, like even like in the last month and a half, where I cried because I am just sometimes just like really sick of struggling. And yeah, I think that it's gotten better, but there is still a struggle there.
Being bipolar make it hard to stay sober?
I think being bipolar, in my experience, does sometimes make it harder to stay sober. But it's kind of hard to say because I don't know what it's like for someone who is sober and doesn't have a mental health issue. They could be struggling just as much, but in other ways. So I don't feel like I struggle more than another person, but I feel like I do struggle.
Did you have any days where you questioned your sobriety, and how did you get through that, and what tools did you use?
What number is that?
29.
Okay. 29. 29? Yeah, so in the beginning, I questioned my sobriety a lot. One of the biggest things was that I'm too young to be an alcoholic. Like, this is what everybody's doing at my age, is just, drinking and partying. And I felt like I might miss out on some things. And yeah. When tempted, all I have to do is play out the tape in my head. And that's one huge helpful tool, not just for like drinking, but for like even like making decisions. Like, I'll just be like, okay, I have these two decisions. Let me play this tape out. Like, what's going to happen if I make this decision? What's going to happen if I make this decision? And for that comes in handy to help for drinking, like, what's gonna happen if I drink. Okay, so, and another thing I wanted to mention is that when I do have a craving, it's not like I just want one glass of wine and I will be fine and dandy. No, I want to get fucked up. Like, I want to get blackout drunk, like just completely wasted. And that's what a craving is like. So, yeah.
What do you do when you get the urge to break your sobriety?
So when I get the urge to break my sobriety, I had to kind of glance down at my notes because there's a lot of things that I do use. One of the things is pause and breathe and pray. That's like one of the things. And then also another thing that I learned was it's called HALT, HALT. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And address those first, because a lot of the times I'm just tired and hungry, and so that could be something. Yeah, and play the tape forward, or call a sober friend.
What steps, measures, or boundaries did you put in place when you became sober?
What number is this?
31.
So the boundaries or steps that I put in place when I first became sober was to like always put my sobriety first. Let's see here. And asking myself the question, if there is some place that I'm going that there will be alcohol there, like, what is my point in being there? Is it to be like social, or and a lot of the times I find that if it's just to like be around one person, then I can schedule like one-on-one time with them. And one of the boundaries that I first had when I was sober was, don't call me when you're drunk. So yeah, I feel like a lot of little boundaries, like with myself, have just come up along the way as well.
How has being sober affected your relationships with your family and friends and partners?
Being sober has had, I feel like, a really positive influence on my relationships with like my friends and my family, just because I'm able to be there. I'm more present when I'm in a situation now. I'm not like pre-gaming on the way there and then drinking while I'm there. I'm just able to show up for people. So that's nice.
Do you still have an urge to drink? Does it get better as time goes on?
It's weird. So it's weird to describe what an urge to drink feels like for me because of being bipolar. I find that my cravings come with like manic episodes, and just because when I am feeling manic, which me and my therapist call it sparkly. We call it I feeling sparkly. When I am feeling sparkly, I tend to crave to do more just like self destructive behaviors. And so I definitely crave drinking more when I am feeling sparkly just because I have a lot of energy and I don't know what to do. So, yeah.
When did you realize you might be bipolar and how did you handle it?
When I realized I might be bipolar, the first time I was 18 years old and I got diagnosed as bipolar, but I was like, no, I'm just a moody teenager. Like, I don't want to take a pill for the rest of my life. And then when I was 26, before I went to treatment, another doctor told me they thought I might be bipolar, and I was like, no, I'm not bipolar, I'm just, drinking too much, I'm an alcoholic. And so I quit drinking, and then I was about almost 11 months sober when I was like, if this is what sobriety feels like, then fuck this, because I am struggling. And so I sought out to get help, and in my first appointment, he just asked me to describe how I was feeling and, really go into detail about that. And by the end of the session, he was like, so, have you ever heard of bipolar? And I was like, my good sir, you are not the first person to tell me that. So, yeah. And at first I felt kind of upset and like in self-pity a little bit because I just kind of felt like now I'm like a red flag, like I'm an alcoholic, I'm bipolar, like I have like trauma from an abusive relationship, like I just felt like I had like all this baggage. But then it just kind of made me realize that, like finding out I was an alcoholic, finding out I was bipolar just gave me an opportunity to learn more about myself and to really take care of myself. So, yeah.
What was the process of being diagnosed bipolar and did they prescribe medication?
So, yes. So when I was diagnosed bipolar, they did bring up the option for medication and asked me how I felt about that. I was a little bit hesitant at first just because I wasn't sure. I'd never taken a medication before, like a prescribed medication, and so I just wasn't sure about it, but ultimately in the end I made the decision that it is something that I should move forward with and at least give it a try because I was feeling like I was struggling so much. And so, yes, they prescribed me medication and I am taking it.
And it's working out. It's helpful.
Yes, I feel like my medication is helpful. I feel like now when I'm feeling a manic episode, it might last like 3 to 6 hours instead of sometimes it would be like 3 to 6 months. So,
What's a manic episode like for you?
a manic episode for me is So I kind of touch on this a little bit in the beginning of the video, but it just feels like I can do anything. Like and that was another thing that, I was a little bit nervous starting medication because I felt like when I'm in a manic episode, it's almost like a free high. And I was like, am I willing to give this up? I mean, and then I just thought about like, yeah, it feels like a high, but at the same time, like all I want to do is destroy my life when I feel that way. So, yeah, I feel like I can do anything and I won't have any consequences. Like I'm just not thinking ahead. My thoughts just go so quickly that I say that I can't even lick them as they pass by because it's just so quick and it's hard for me to focus. And yeah, and I'll do like shopping sprees and like before I quit drinking, a lot of the times when I was feeling sparkly or having like a manic episode, I would just go out to the bar and find some poor hopeless person to take me home, and I'd put myself in a lot of dangerous situations because I felt like I wouldn't have any consequences. And so yeah, is a lot of the times when I'm having an episode and I don't know what to do, I just end up pacing in my house for like 45 minutes to an hour just because I have too much anxiety to go outside, but like I feel like doing something, so it's just this like internal battle that is sucky sometimes, most of the time. Yeah.
Can you tell when your highs and lows are coming, and do you have any preventative measures?
I can sometimes tell when my highs and lows are coming. My number one indicator is getting a headache. I will usually get a headache like a day before or sometimes the same day when my mood changes, and that can go from like, oh, I'm in a high and I have a headache. So either I'm going to be higher tomorrow or I'm going to drop down low, or I can be in a low and have a headache and I can be even lower tomorrow or go up to a high. Like if there's when I get a headache, I'm like, great, I don't know how I'm feeling tomorrow. This is nice. And so, yeah, so I do have an indicator sort of for myself, is just what I've noticed as I've become aware of being bipolar, that when I get a headache, my mood will change. But there really isn't any like preventative measures. Like it just happens. And that's one of the things that I feel like some people don't really understand, that like even on medication, like it doesn't go away. Medication is just a tool, like self-care and painting, things that I do to like help me. I feel like medication is just one of those tools to like help me manage it a little bit.
How hard is it when you feel depressed and don't want to be here anymore?
It gets really hard when I am feeling depressed and like I don't want to be here anymore. It's kind of scary how low it can get, because, on one hand, I'll feel like I can conquer the world, and then on the other hand, I just get like intrusive thoughts of like, maybe I shouldn't take a bath today because I might drown myself. Or, just like really, really intrusive, like suicidal thoughts have happened. And I use my tools. I do what I can to like get through that. It's a weird feeling to describe because even though those thoughts are there, I don't feel like acting on them. It's just like they just pop into my head. And it's, yeah, no warning, just there. So, yeah.
Do temptations vary or intensify with your mood swings?
My temptations do vary with my mood swings, and um, like I mentioned before, I feel like the temptation is higher when I am feeling sparkly, and but then again, sometimes the temptation is higher when I'm feeling really low as well, because I'm just like, well, while I'm down here, in this low, might as well just make myself feel worse. I just get into like this, I don't know, spiral.
What are your skills to cope with that, or how do you cope with that?
Ah,
Changes?
yes. My coping skills, that I hold very deeply. I do have a list because there's a lot. So phone calls is probably the biggest one. Is I'll call somebody, whether I'm feeling high or low, or craving especially. Journaling, music is an outlet for me. It helps me kind of process those feelings a little bit instead of, just sitting in it and feeling like there's nothing I can do. Like if I'm feeling really low, I'll listen to music that makes me cry because I feel like that's a release. And if I'm feeling really high, I'll listen to music that makes me dance because I feel like that's also a release. Um, Walking, pacing in my apartment. I talked to my therapist about that. He said it's not that weird. So, yeah, so that's something that I'll do. Taking baths, a lot of comfort movies I have to watch, like Inside Out. The kids movie is probably my number one movie, whether I'm feeling high or low. I always just turn that on and lay down, and usually it puts me to sleep, and sometimes I just need to take a nap. Painting, I like to do tarot card readings, rituals, or reading a book to kind of like escape and have. I like to read one book in particular is called Where the Eagles Nest, is actually written by my great aunt, and it's about my family coming from Germany, and it's a little bit of a love story as well, and I just love reading that story. And so yeah, that's one of my coping books.
What do you identify as bipolar or alcoholic, and who labeled you?
What question is that?
Number 11.
So let's see here. So to answer the question of why do I identify bipolar and alcoholic and who labeled me, I'm just going to read this. It makes sense to me, basically. Everything added up. I had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. I labeled myself in a way when the facts were laid out in front of me, and it all made sense. No one ever once told me I'm an alcoholic. I made that decision for myself. And, I hid my drinking so well that I even hid it from myself. And these labels gave me some direction for life.
Is there any way alcohol intensifies what you now know as bipolar?
I believe that alcohol definitely intensified my bipolar. I made a lot of mistakes because I would have this feeling like, oh, I just want to go out and get fucked up or do messed up shit, but I can't do that. I need alcohol to blame. So I would drink alcohol and blame alcohol for a lot of the decisions that I made. And now I realize that those impulses to do those things are still there even without alcohol. The difference is that now I just don't act on them. And it's really fucking hard. There's like Like just last night, I, for example, was like, all right, like I am feeling tip top shape today. It's gonna be a good day, and all I wanted to do was just like, I don't know. It's just, it sounds so like vulgar, I feel like, or I don't know what the right word is, but like I just wanted to fuck somebody, and I didn't care who. And it was just, and before I would just go out and find somebody, but now I'm like, okay, like we're good people now. We don't do this. So, so instead I treat myself and then I get over it. And that's just like, I don't know, one example of like a recent experience, fairly recent experience that I had.
Once you physically, your body physically got rid of the dependence on alcohol, do you physically feel better?
Once
Do you
I,
feel a difference?
yeah, once I like physically got it out of my system, I did feel a lot better in general. I felt like my gut just got better. Like I had like kind of some gutty issues, and those kind of seemed to resolve themselves. I felt like I had, just like every day had more and more energy overall, without feeling, hungover. And it's just a shitty way to live life, and I lived my life that way for I don't even know how long.
Is bipolar support and alcohol support the same?
So my bipolar support and alcohol support is very similar. My number one support is my mom. I do call her every day and we just sort of check in. And I feel like I can be honest with her if I'm struggling with alcohol that day or if I'm struggling with bipolar that day. And, I do have another really good friend would be known as like a sponsor, who I do call when I'm feeling both as well. So I do feel like I have really good support. And there's other people too. Like when I'm feeling lonely, I just like scroll through my phone and just pick, a person to call. It's nice to have that support.
Can I ask one question, or just a small question? Have you found people treating you worse because they now know you are an alcoholic? Have you had some opposite reaction?
I haven't had any bad experiences, honestly, with people finding out that I'm alcoholic and bipolar. I feel like depending on the situation, either keep it to myself because I want to get to know the other person a little bit better before I share that information, or, I feel like a lot of the times, I feel like it's probably been like 100% of the time has been like a really good experience. If I tell somebody that I'm in recovery, they just say congratulations and, are really happy for me. And a lot of the times when I tell people I have bipolar, they're like, oh, I know a person as well. And so they, can kind of like relate. So it's, it's just nice to, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, is because I feel like there's probably a lot more people than I know or that I think that are also struggling with either bipolar or being an alcoholic or both. And I just really hated feeling alone, and I don't want anybody else to feel alone. So hopefully it reaches some people.
What does your day-to-day support system look like, and how does it differ weekly or monthly?
So my day-to-day support is definitely my mom, because I call her every day. And weekly, my support is going to therapy, and also sometimes attending meetings. I don't make it as much of a priority as I used to. I feel like I depended on that really heavily in my first year of sobriety, and now it's just like a maintenance type thing. And then monthly, I do my medication checks. So I check in with the medication specialist who is like, how's everything going with your medication? Are you still liking it? Are you not? And I feel like that's really important as well, to have somebody who actually cares about that.
How do you feel most supported by those around you?
I feel most supported by others when they're just understanding.
Does it help to know you have Facebook friends cheering you on, and do you know you are loved by them?
It does help me to know that I have Facebook friends who are supporting me. Some of these people I've never met in real life, but they're cheering me on, and that is just wonderful. I love it.
Were you drinking while taking your bipolar medication?
I started taking medication for bipolar after I quit drinking, so there was never really a time where I was drinking and also taking medication for bipolar.
What are your thoughts on prescribed medications in recovery?
What number is that?
We are on 22.
Okay. Okay. My thoughts on prescribed medication in recovery is that everyone's recovery is their own, and it should be nobody else's business what you do to stay sober. And so if you need to take a medication every day to help you stay sober off of your drug of choice, then I feel like by all means just do what you have to do. And I think it might go into the next question, so I'll wait.
How do medications and drugs interact with bipolar?
Medications help me with my bipolar, and drugs, I don't really, I mean, depending on the type of drug that this person's referring to, if they're referring to like prescribed drugs, they're helpful for me. If it's like recreational, I feel like when it comes to anything recreational, I have to be careful about how I use it. And I also feel like it depends on my mood as well. Like I can't use anything recreational if I'm feeling a certain way because it could make it worse. So I'm typically very hesitant.
When it comes to medication, where is your line between need and abuse?
So when it comes to medication, I feel like the line between needing and abusing, I think of one example for myself personally was that with an anxiety medication that I was prescribed, it really helped me, and I felt relaxed. When I was feeling anxious, I would take it and it would relieve my anxiety, which is what it's supposed to do. But I would just feel so relaxed, like, oh, I'm so glad that that's gone. That there would be times where I actually wished I had anxiety so I could take a medication to feel some type of instant relief. And so I feel like that could be, maybe like a line. And I don't know if anybody else has felt that way, but yeah, so
Would it cause you to almost seek out stressful situations so that you could do that? Or was the line, you didn't act on that, you just thought about it?
yeah, I didn't act on wanting to have anxiety. Like I wouldn't put myself in any type of stressful situation. I would just be like, what sounds nice right now? That feeling that I felt when I had my anxiety relieved. So.
I did. I was just going to ask you specifically about marijuana. If that has ever helped you or not helped you, does it make it worse, better? But answer to her, yeah.
Yeah. So, with marijuana, I do use it occasionally. It's more so when the weather's nice, because I feel like I kind of crave just a little bit of something like, I don't know, like it's nice out and I just want to have some sort of feeling. But when I do use marijuana, it's a CBD strain, so it's like only like 4 to 6% THC and the rest is CBD. And that's what I find is helpful for me, because I did try once while being sober using just regular weed where the THC percent was like 20, and I hated it. It was horrible. I felt like yeah, I did not have an enjoyable experience. So so I found something that works for me that I feel like, I can use every once in a while. And like I said, I feel like everyone's recovery is their own, and I don't feel like for me, using a CBD strain of weed is gonna make me drink. So I'm not concerned there.
What was the medication journey like for bipolar the first few weeks and months?
The medication journey for bipolar was very slow. I didn't notice any like big changes. Like, it wasn't like one day it just started working. Because my moods, kind of change from here to there. It was kind of hard to scale if it was working or not, because may have just been in like a plateau. Or, but I have upped my dose like 3 or 4 times now, just based on the fact that I do get very sparkly still, and how long that lasts for me. So, the journey has been good to me so far. We started with one medication, and I've been on it for over a year now, so I haven't had to have that dance with different medications. So I feel like I was pretty fortunate, because I know a lot of people, it takes time to find the right one. So
Will you ever stop taking medication?
if somebody asked me if I will ever stop taking medication, I would say not, if I wanted to stay sober. I think that it's very helpful for me, because I still struggle even on medication sometimes. I think the thought of not taking medication just like scares the crap out of me, because of how I was feeling at almost month 11, thinking if this is what sobriety's like, then fuck this. I'm gonna drink. So, yeah.
What advice would you give a recovering alcoholic?
Which one is that?
35.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this. The advice that I would give to a recovering alcoholic is that it's worth it. And life gets lifey. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're going to experience a lot of emotions that you've numbed out before. Sometimes you just have to sit in it, and this too shall pass. The urges are normal, old habits die hard, and love and forgive your past self. Don't be discouraged by the want to be self-destructive. You spent a long time in fight or flight mode. The time for living and peace has come. No longer have to live in survival mode, and fear is normal. You got this.
How has dating life been since being sober?
So I'm gonna read something. So dating life, being sober. I started this thing. One thing about being bipolar is you get a lot of big ideas, and then you start them, and then they don't go anywhere. And so I'm happy to be here, because I feel like one of my big ideas is actually going somewhere. But I had this idea of starting a blog, and I wrote one thing for it, and I wrote it about sober dating, and I titled it "The Power of Sober Dating in Your 20s." So you've made the choice to cut out alcohol in your life. That's hard enough on its own, but add to it that you're also single. What's there to do on a date in your 20s without alcohol, right? My name is Haley, and I'm an alcoholic, and at the time, I was 26 and I'm sober. This is for anyone who is sober, sober curious, or single.
You might be thinking, sober dating sounds boring, but it's quite the opposite. The perks of being sober on a first date or any other date is that you actually get to know for yourself if you genuinely enjoy the person's company. No alcohol to convince you that you're having a good time when in reality, this dude sucks. Another perk is that you won't be racking up the bill with cocktails or beer. So if in the end you want to split the check because the date didn't go well, it probably won't be that much. Also, if the date goes well and you want to see them again, you'll know for sure. My experience dating with alcohol usually led to expensive tabs, one-night stands, or me leading the guy on to only ghost him. Me plus alcohol equals insensitive and insecure. Even though I thought I was being brave and bold when the time came, I'd hardly ever say no. Whether it was saying no to another drink, a second date, a kiss, or even sex. Being sober gives me the power to stick to my guns in a situation like that, telling the man or woman that I don't want to kiss or that I do. I'd like to see you again, or I think this was a great experience, but I don't see us moving forward romantically. We're all adults here, right? If it doesn't work out, it just doesn't. No reason to waste any time, and I'm sure this thought has crossed your mind. What if they don't want to date me when they find out I don't drink? Well, guess what, babe? Then they ain't the one for you. Not by a long shot. Consider yourself lucky for avoiding that douche and move on to the next good-looking guy or gal. Someone who respects your boundaries and life choices is a hell of a lot sexier than someone who questions them or tries to convince you not to have them. In any date, respect yourself, love yourself, and stick to what you know is right. Because you know what else is sexy? A strong, confident person who knows what they deserve and is a respectful partner. Keeping it real.
There's something you could tell yourself the week before you got sober, what would you say?
This is the last question, right?
Right.
Okay. Let me see here. So, what was the question again?
If there was something you could tell yourself the week before you got sober, what would you say?
If there's something I could tell myself the week before I got sober, I kind of made a list, or just like I wrote down the answer is, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you had enough? You can do this. So many great things are coming for you. It's worth it. Be prepared for sugar cravings. You will uncover and learn so much about yourself, and you will be able to heal those wounds.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really
Good job.
good.
Okay, so this is, there's no date on it. I don't know when I wrote it, but I wrote it. This is just kind of how I was feeling. Anyways, it says, many nights I would fall asleep with a drink half full by my bed. I'd wake up and see it. I wouldn't ever remember what number of drink I was on. Depending on what it was, I would finish it before bringing the empty glass downstairs, gagging as I harshly swallowed it down. My eyes would water and I'd take deep breaths telling myself, it's okay, I got this. And I'd swallow my watery saliva trying not to puke. Empty glass from the night before, sat down in the kitchen sink. I'm not an alcoholic, I said, I just need another drink.
Jeez. Yeah,
That's really powerful.
yeah.
Yeah. So that basically describes how I was feeling before I went to rehab.
Yeah, right.
Woke up in London yesterday, found myself in the city near Piccadilly. Don't really know how I got here. I got some pictures on my phone, new names and numbers. might be something that I'll miss. Hopelessly, I feel like the window closes so quick. Hopelessly, I'm taking a mental picture of you now. Cause hopelessly, the hopeless we have so much to feel good about. Oh, this has gotta be the good life. This has gotta be the good life. This could really be a good life, good life. I say, oh, this feeling that you can't find. The city is a fine night. This could really be a good life, a good life. Oh yeah, a good life, good life. Listen to my friends in New York, say hello. My friends in LA, they don't know where we've been for the past few years or so. Paris to China to Colorado. Sometimes there's airplanes I can't jump out. Sometimes it's bullshit that don't work now. We have got our stories, but please tell me what there's to complain about.